Good morning and welcome once again to our Business Community Support Discussions, a feature that we do here on the Main Street Fort Dodge Facebook page and also the YouTube channel of Alpha Media Fort Dodge. So welcome once again as we discuss things that are important to the business community right here in Fort Dodge and really all of Iowa. And so some great information on the agenda today. But before we get to that, I want to thank Cheryl for filling in with the host duties for me last week as I was dealing with some technical difficulties. She always does such a great job. And so you may want to go back and listen to that once again on the Facebook page and maybe even share it with some friends because there's some great information about entertainment, some things going on out in the outdoors that you might want to know as we head into hopefully warmer weather as we get a little bit closer to spring. But for now, let's bring on our usual guests and our usual contributors, Cheryl O'Hearn with Spin Market and Digital. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for the nice plug. And no, I'll never replace you, Jed. You're still you're much more professional at it than I am.
Well, I don't know about that, but thank you. Also, Chris Patrick with Main Street Fort Dodge. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. It's nice to have you back, Jed. And always, Cheryl does a great job. So
yeah.
If it wasn't for the two of you, this wouldn't be happening, even though it's on our Facebook page. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, we both feel that this is such a great service to our community that we just really enjoy putting it on. And we've got a great guest today, and I'm really excited about what we're going to be talking about today because it's something that I think that you're going to find we have a ton of maybe information that folks didn't know. And so I'm excited to talk a little bit about that. This week we have Elizabeth Stanek, the Executive Director of Linking Families and Communities. And we'll be talking about Childcare Connections campaign and what that means to Fort Dodge, what that means to Iowa. And one of the things that, Cheryl, we were talking about before this came on is Iowa really holds a number one ranking in the United States when it comes to needing childcare. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Exactly. And I don't believe a lot of people realize this, but in Iowa, we have the largest percentage of working parents, both parents working outside of the home. And that creates a huge healthcare issue or childcare issue out there. And what we're going to talk about today is not only how it impacts families, but the huge financial impact it has on our businesses, on getting and keeping employees, and a variety of other things. There's a lot of data and details that Elizabeth has collected, and she has she's a great person, wealth information on childcare.
Well, great. Well, let's bring on Elizabeth and talk a little bit about that. Elizabeth, good morning, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good, thank you.
Well, we're so excited to have you on and to talk a little bit about this project that's going on and finding out, what we can do to be a part of this. And really the subject today is childcare. So let's get into it. We've I guess whetted the appetite a little bit, but childcare really a pretty important thing when it comes to Iowa families, Fort Dodge families.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's not something people think about on a daily basis, but it's an integral part of our local economy. It's what allows parents to go to work. So it is part of our infrastructure. Young families are looking for that when they move to Fort Dodge or, any area, really. They need to have somewhere that they can trust and make sure that are going to take great care of their children. It enables them to go to work and be productive. I mean, there's childcare that might enable you to go to work, but good childcare, quality childcare, enables you to be productive, where you're not worrying about your kids all day, or where you're not getting panicky phone calls or a provider that's no longer going to be of service that day. It can also increase our labor force. And we know right now that we have people who aren't entering back into the workforce after COVID, who weren't part of the workforce before because they couldn't find childcare. So that has an impact on our businesses. We already have a low unemployment rate. I mean, it's really dropped back down since we've moved further through our COVID pandemic, but it impacts those businesses. And then it also is important for children. 90% of the brain development develops in the first 5 years, and really in the first 3 years, 80% of that brain develops. So it's important to do it right from the start, and that's why it's important for everyone. We're talking about a 2-generation issue here, where we're not only helping today's parents, but we're helping the parents and our workforce of the future.
So, you talk a little bit about getting school ready for those kids. That's a piece of this as well, is daycare that gets the kids ready to enter school when they get to that, 5 or 6 year range.
Correct. Childcare isn't just plopping a kid down in front of the TV and leaving them for a while. It is all the things that you would do if you could as a parent, from reading and playing games and dress up, dramatic play. I mean, there's so many skills that children learn through play. I mean, that's really how they learn. So it's important that it be good and quality, so that we are making or preparing children for school.
Well, we have a little video that we're going to try to watch, and it talks a little bit about those who are doing childcare and why they are so important. So we're going to see if we can't get this to play.
Okay.
So I get it. I mean, it's really an important piece of what goes on in our community, and there's nothing better than seeing smiling kids who are happy. One of the things that we didn't really talk about when we talk about getting kids ready for what comes next, and many times that's public or private school, but just the socialization aspect of maybe seeing some other kids and learning to interact with kids who might not be a part of their own family. Correct.
It starts early, that socialization with not only adults but other children, and even though up to about age 2, it's pretty much parallel play. They start to interact with each other more at about the 3 and 4 year age range, and that's where that's super important, being able to navigate situations. So yeah, you're exactly right.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Webster County and exactly where we are with childcare needs in this community. It's a pretty big need right now.
It is, and it has been for a long time, but it's simply gotten worse. There's some reasons as to why, as far as federal and state requirements, but you can see that we have been well under the need. So if you look at this graph, on the left-hand side, those numbers correlate to spaces, and the bars right there are non-registered homes, registered homes, and then center spaces. The lines above are, the solid gray is the number of children, 0 to 12. That's our total population. So you can see how that's changed a little bit over time. But then the dotted line is the number of children that need care, and that figure is a calculation based on the percentage of parents working times the number of children that we have. So you can see that has dropped some, but still there's a big gap between that dotted line and the top of the gray box in 2000, to about the tune of 2,300 spaces.
Well, it also looks like, well, two things. One, the problem is actually getting worse. And then secondly, I'm really interested in the drop of the non-registered home care, which seems to have really dropped. Now, I'm curious if you know the cause of that. Is it regulations, or is it more people just working outside the home and being unavailable for that?
It's really twofold, but the largest drop you'll see kind of by the 2014, 2015. And that is due to some federal childcare regulations. So folks that were a non-registered childcare provider, I should back up, can have 5 or fewer children in their care and not be registered. And that includes their own young children. So childcare is not something that's going to make you wealthy. So certainly there are people that are leaving that field for a typical job with benefits and breaks, vacation time. But those regulations came into effect about 2016. We knew that was coming in 2015. And so people just got out because they would have to be, in order to accept child care assistance, which is a state payment for low-income families that are working or going to school, they would have to be, they would have to do some training, and they would also have to go through some performance or spot checks. So people said, you know what, I'm not making money. I'm not going to do this any longer. I'm about retirement age. This isn't worth it. And so they just stopped. So that's why we have a decrease. And because there's more, there are more regulations, but there's also more monitoring that's happening.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, let's talk about some of the issues that are making that happen. And we've touched on some of those already, but there are some issues that are sort of making this a problem.
Right. And first of all, it's not, like we said earlier, it's not highly profitable. But if you're talking about a staff or a childcare center, the staff are most of your expense, and they're not making a large wage. Many start at minimum wage, $8 an hour, with oftentimes no benefits. So you can go to the Quick Star and make $12 an hour and have benefits. You've got to really love children and want to do that job to stay in that or to do that. On the flip side, childcare is a big part of a family's budget. And actually, it's been compared to the cost of, like Iowa State or Iowa, a state school's tuition. It's more expensive. It's about $10,000 a year. The difference is there are no state subsidies or tuition assistance unless you're low income for the average family. So while it's a large part of a family's budget, the workers don't get paid much. There's lots of regulations. People don't realize that, there's one staff to every 4 babies. So it's not like a school where you have a kindergarten teacher with 20 to 24 children. Much, much different. And then, like I touched on, there's no public funding provided unless you are a low income family. So the impact is, everyone loses. Working parents lose. They lose about $3,300 on average due to lost work productivity. Businesses lose thousands to millions per year in lost productivity. There's turnover, which, depending on the type of job, can be 20% of that employee's salary or up to 150% of a manager's salary. They also lose the ability when there's no childcare or there's a huge deficit like we have to attract new workers and possibly to retain the existing workers. And then lastly, our communities and our government lose in tax revenue and gross domestic product, and attracting new people to our community. So I just have a few facts I think are quite interesting and kind of blow people's minds. Absences and employee turnover cost Iowa employers an estimated of $781 million a year. That's astonishing. Iowa loses an estimated $153 million annually in tax revenue due to childcare issues. And we also lose an annual amount of $935 million due to employee absenteeism from childcare issues. So those are quite staggering when you think about it, just sheerly the amount of money that is lost by businesses and our government, our communities, we have to do something. We know it's a problem. Those numbers don't lie, and we know that we are not able to attract folks. On the flip side, if you're looking as a parent, many of them would leave their job, 85%, for one with more family-friendly benefits. So offering a childcare stipend or having on-site childcare is an attractant to young families. Also, we've seen that companies that provide childcare turnover declines by about 60%, and absences decrease by about 30%. So you can see that keeps people more engaged and more productive in your work environment. And then nationally, there's been a number of studies, economic studies, but for every dollar invested, $16 is returned when you invest in early childhood. So if you're a stock market kind of person, you know that's a pretty darn good investment.
Yeah. So Cheryl, I'm interested to get your take on this, because you and I have talked, numerous times about we're entering a period of time where we're really going to have to fight for employees. And I look at this and I go, what an opportunity as a business owner to say, I'm going to change my compensation structure a little bit and provide a few of these family-friendly things to make me more competitive.
Exactly. And that you nailed it right there. If you want to be a business and are looking at branding yourself as being employer friendly to families, if you want to brand your business as being the forerunner of what of our community and supporting families, doing something like this can be if you're hiring, could be the difference between that new employee coming to you and going someplace else. And you think of the dollars and cents that, like Elizabeth has brought out here, it really makes financial success if you're able to bring in high quality employees, get the cream of the crop to come to you and not to go to your competition. That's huge.
Yeah, I look at this and I just see great opportunity for employers to really differentiate themselves in a time where we are going to be fighting to retain the best employees. So what a neat piece. Now, you guys have kind of been out there, Elizabeth, and you're trying to find ways to solve this problem. So what have you guys been out there doing?
We have been turning every stone possible. So in the last few years, we have conducted a feasibility study, which included a market study. We surveyed businesses, we surveyed parents. And at that time, it was completed in 2017. Fort Dodge alone, 86% of families with children 6 and under had all parents in the workforce. Now, that's pretty darn high. The state was at 75% at that time, and the nation was at 65% of all parents. So our Fort Dodge residents, most people were working 86%. So that's pretty astonishing. Now, I don't have updated numbers due to COVID because data is behind, but I would say we're still probably higher than the state of Iowa. So we saw then that we had a deficit of like 1,638 spaces, and we know it's growing, as you saw the graphs earlier. So we looked at what solutions do we need? Well, we need every solution, because you can't, with one building, 2 buildings, make up a deficit of 2,000 spaces. So we need more home providers. We need to expand existing centers and to build a new center or more than one new center. So we have a financial model for 134 space childcare center, and we're kind of working towards how do we help other people expand. So if you want to advance to the next slide, our biggest barrier, of course, is cost. From the feasibility study, we had architectural designs completed for not only the new center that we had envisioned, but also for Community Early Childhood Center. Now, they were the only person or only group at that time that was interested and had room to expand. So we got those drawings and we went through a campaign feasibility study to see, how much could be raised for these kinds of causes. And we then we're in the process of readjusting our vision, because those things are pretty costly. So if you want to advance to the next slide, I can talk a little bit more about community, and then what we're doing. So like I mentioned, cost is a barrier. We knew it would be, but we weren't quite sure how big of a barrier. A new center cost about $4.5 million for 134 childcare spaces. Sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But when you compare what schools put into school buildings, it's not really. It's just that the funding source is so much different. So we are actively recruiting new childcare home providers and working to retain the existing providers. We provide grants for facility improvements. Now, this is linking families and communities with the funding we have, and repairs and expansions we need to keep those existing facilities, centers up and running and in the best shape possible. We're also trying to increase the quality of childcare providers and helping home providers invest in their business, making quality improvements, not only in curriculum, but in facilities and manipulatives and things like that for kids. And then we also provide on-site health and safety consultation for childcare providers. We do this not just, I'm not the one running around and doing it, but we work with our community partners to do that. So Childcare Resource and Referral, Webster County Public Health to do those. So moving forward, we have revised our plans. We are meeting with individuals that took part in our original study to see what their thoughts are on that. We are in conversation with potential property owners to see if there's some potential for a childcare center in that location. That's a difficult thing because you need not only space on the inside, you need lots of bathrooms, and you need space on the outside for playgrounds. We are working with community to expand, and actually they received a $600,000 grant from the government for that process. So we're working on that as well. And then we are working on a marketing and a digital campaign about childcare with Cheryl. And so she's phenomenal, as you know, called Childcare Connections. So we have a new site that talks about what we're trying to do. It also has a donation page so people can make a donation. It has employer information on steps that employers can take to work towards more family-friendly policies or other things that they can do to help with not only our community, but their employees. So the digital campaign that we just kicked off, you'll see that great picture of a mom. She's a working mom. She's holding that baby in her bag and whatever she had to pick up at the store. So that's kind of our ad image that's going out digitally, talking about that $935 million that is lost due to employee absenteeism. And we're really trying to encourage people to join our local childcare effort, be part of the solution. Let us help you understand childcare, because it's something different than many businesses are that they understand. It doesn't work like a normal business. And advocating for childcare solutions locally at the state level and the federal level. There are 3 bills, like I listed on the slide, that are currently in the House. They're House study bills. But we need people to speak up and contact our legislators and say, hey, we need something done about childcare.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because the thing that I've been sitting here wondering this entire time that we've been talking just has to do with the financial and the business model of it. You have to look at it and you go, okay, there's probably not a world in which building a multi-million-dollar facility makes a ton of sense for a private individual. And so I wonder, is there appetite for a public-private partnership in there? Is there appetite for, changing the state law to increase the amount of money a family can make while still receiving some of those subsidies?
Currently, there is not. We've been pushing for that. Right now, the threshold for child care assistance is 145% of the federal poverty level. So we would really like to see that increased, because you go from getting some help to nothing, and these people are struggling. And then you've got that cost of childcare. It's a matter of priority. And I think that what legislators need to hear is that it's a priority of our business community. It's a priority of our families to make those things happen. There hasn't been that kind of advocacy, lobbying, that outpouring of support for childcare up until, it's more recent. We have more, but there really hasn't been an overabundance. And so that's really what they need to hear.
Yeah, so these bills that are out there, let's talk a little bit about them, because it sounds like those are exactly what these House bills are talking about, is opportunities to sort of solve some of those problems on a state level. And then, what can people do? Do they need to get a hold of their legislators?
I would say yes, they definitely need to get a hold of their legislators. The first one, House Study Bill 2, increases the child care reimbursement rate. There's a long story short, there's a study that's done by the Department of Human Services every couple of years. And they set that rate. I think the most recent one is at 50% of the market rate. So if you're charging $100, let's say, the state will reimburse you $50. You hear that all the time with like Medicaid payments to doctors and dentists and that kind of thing. And that's why some of them don't accept it, because it's much lower than what their cost is. So we fight that in childcare. The issue with childcare is there are providers that don't even charge that minimum rate. So we need to up that, but that puts an additional burden on families. But definitely we need to update those reimbursement rates. They're looking at 75% of the current market rate survey as of right now. The matching grants, that's something, helping to encourage public-private partnerships. And that's really what we're going to need to make things, especially in more rural parts of Iowa, happen. No one can do it alone. If you're in Des Moines, if you're in Iowa City, you have nonprofit national chain centers coming into your area because they can charge $300 to $400 a week for a family, and people will pay it. But that's not happening here. So we have a huge need for private-public partnerships, and so that will come up this session as well. And then there's some discussion in that last bill about tweaking the numbers for home providers. I'm not quite sure where that's going to end up. As of the publishing of this bill, they were trying to add 2 school-age children. As of yesterday in a meeting, it was back down to 1. So that's, they're trying to make more spaces available. But that's for non-registered providers. And as you saw on the chart, those are a pretty small group of people everywhere in the state, not just in Webster County.
Sure.
I would just add that, we are also able to help employers with understanding their workforce. And so we have a survey process that we can go through and email out to their workers and analyze that data and provide some feedback so that they have a better understanding of their workforce's needs. So that's something that, doesn't take more than a phone call. Call me or email me, and we can make that happen. And I think that was helpful. We've done it for one business here already, and I think it was very helpful. It certainly opened their eyes to not only what parents of young children who are using childcare, how they feel, but also the other staff that don't have young children, how they feel, because those folks are the ones picking up the slack when Susie leaves early because she's got a childcare issue. So childcare is just as important to them as it is, or not quite, but pretty important to them too, because they're there picking up the pieces. they're covering for that person when he or she leaves, or taking on their workload when they're gone. So I think it was really helpful, and that's also something that we can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have thought maybe in the past that childcare was an issue for maybe just young moms, right? But it really is an issue that affects all of us. It affects especially those who are running businesses to a great degree, because for any of us that have had to deal with employees, you certainly know that childcare is probably the number one concern of folks, at least in my business, to say, am I able to have the childcare that I need? What happens on a late start day? Those things matter, and dealing with them and having a plan as somebody who runs a business, it's an important piece.
Right.
Well, and COVID has brought this out even more, with trying to juggle job and teaching your kids at home because they're not able to go to school. It's made it a more powerful subject in the families. You see parents literally crying because they're frustrated because they don't understand the new math out there or whatever it may be. And they're trying to help that virtual learning that's going on with their child. And they're also trying to be social, and they're trying to work and whatever else goes with it. So if there's a positive in COVID, I think that's one of the things that we can really say has brought it to more attention and the severity of it. And Elizabeth has done a great job in illustrating that this is not just somebody that has small children. It's not just their problem. It is our entire state. And if we want to be the forerunner state of being family friendly, which we always are marketing out there that Iowa's family friendly, Iowa friendly, this is one of those things that needs to be added to that friendly brand.
Yeah, I just think about all of the families who all of a sudden one day got the text message or email or phone call that said, oh, by the way, we're going to a hybrid model tomorrow. Right? And then suddenly you're trying to scramble to go, oh, great, what do I do with my kids? And it's a problem as it is, but man, to think about it in COVID times. Elizabeth, have you had any, I mean, obviously, like you said, the data is trailing, but I'm sure there's conversations that are happening around how COVID has affected childcare.
Absolutely. Especially when it first started, people pulled back, they were working from home. And so many pulled their children out of childcare, or they were, were really concerned about COVID in childcare. I do have to put a plug in for our providers, because all of our centers stayed open. I mean, they were open the whole time. Unless they had a case of COVID amongst an employee, they might have closed a classroom for a short period of time, but we didn't see the massive closures that other parts of the state. So our childcare providers here are just the best. But so that really hurt when folks pulled their kids. That really hurt those childcare businesses. So if you're thinking, you're on a low margin anyway, and now your revenue's gone. I mean, and many have policies in place where they might continue to charge those families, but centers also knew that families were hurting. Their one of the parents was laid off or whatever. They were scrambling too. So that really did decrease their revenue. I know that talking to one center was over 200 children was down to 60 one day when I checked in. And so that has a ripple effect too. Not only are they not making money, then they have to tell their workers that they're not coming in today. So that impacts that employee's wage. Yeah, I think we're back. Those centers have waiting lists. No one wanted to lose their spots either, but I think people are back up and functioning for the most part in our community. And so centers are full with the waiting list that they had before. But during that first probably 3-4 months, that was a huge issue for centers. Wow.
So let's talk about, ways we can help. Obviously, you guys have sort of a fundraising campaign that's kicking off. Tell us how people can get involved in that, where that money goes, that sort of thing.
Well, we would love to have additional partners. I mean, the more minds, the better. The money will come to Linking Families and Communities. We are a not-for-profit, so it is tax deductible. But then that 100% of that money will be going at this point to help Community Early Childhood Center to make their expansion. They're going to expand 4 classrooms, about 56 childcare spaces. So any funding that we receive will go right to them. They're also a nonprofit organization, but we're trying to help them through because they have the very busy task of running that center, and they're not campaigners by nature. They take care of kids, and that's what they do best. So we're doing our best to help them out. And as far as how other businesses can help besides financially, let's look at what other options there are. What kinds of services can you provide, or would you be willing to work with other businesses to form a small center that meets your needs, can accommodate your employees? Just this 56 space site or addition is not going to fix our problems. We have to continue to look at solutions and be creative. So I would just urge anyone who is interested in working on childcare to give me a call, or Cheryl as well. But let's sit down and talk about what you're thinking, or what you think could be done, or how you could help. The more minds, the better.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. I think we all gained some perspective on really what's going on with the childcare situation in our community and state. So thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to switch topics. And
one thing I want to add is let's contact your legislators right now, your senators and representatives, because this is key time to be calling them. And as a business owner, say, hey, we want to help, but we need your help as well, or whatever it may be. But the more vocal we are, and we know that the more vocal you are, will help to move this forward and help Elizabeth. And like she said, you can go to their website at Childcare Connection, hit the donate button, and put your money in there, and it'll go to the Community Children's Center here in Fort Dodge.
Great. Well, Elizabeth, if you want, you can feel free to stay on. If you have to run, we understand that too, okay?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'd love to listen, so I'll stay on.
Great. Well, Chris, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Main Street Fort Dodge. I'm sure you have a lot of businesses who are fielding questions, or you're fielding questions about PPP, about EIDL, about all the changes that are going on with those sorts of things as well.
Well, we are, and the SBA right now is really swamped, but if you do have a question, please reach out to Kimberly Tiefenthaler or Darcy Swan. So the PPP, there are several banks here in Fort Dodge that are on board with that, and please contact not just your accountant, but also your banker to see if your regular bank is accepting those applications for a loan. That's a forgivable loan. Also, you don't have to actually use your regular bank where your checking or your savings account is. You can actually use a different bank. So again, really reach out to the people in our field, whether it's the SBA or our office. I do want to remind everybody there is a special section for sole proprietors. So if you were not accepted the first time, you have a better chance this time. So please follow through with this opportunity. I know it's confusing. As Cheryl was talking before we got on air, there's so many questions. Some of the banks don't even know quite when things will be online, but keep apprised. Don't not apply just because it's confusing. Please reach out and utilize some of these sources that we have. I did want to share a couple other things that are going on with Main Street and the downtown. We had our annual meeting for the SMID, that's the Self-Supported Municipal District, on Tuesday, and we announced Alan, or Rusty McNeil, is our Leadership of the Year Award recipient. This is a Main Street, Iowa endeavor. Each of the communities that are involved with Main Street honor someone who's really gone above and beyond. And even through COVID, Rusty made sure that our Main Street Lives, which are our Wednesday opportunities for people to tune in live, as we talk to businesses that are new in the district or events that are going on and nonprofit organizations. So we just really wanted to let him know how much we appreciated him. And he does so much for all sorts of different nonprofit organizations with his position at Iowa Central Community College. So thank you, Rusty, and congrats. Parking is coming up as a topic through the budget workshops with the City Council. So if you are a downtown shopper or wannabe shopper, you haven't come down yet, it's time to do that. But please reach out to your City Council members and especially the business owners downtown and let them know your opinion on parking. Our concept that we were proposing to the city was 2-hour parking and to eliminate the meters. So whether you are for that or against that, please go ahead and reach out to City Council members and let them know your position. The other thing I wanted to let everybody know is our Open for Business contest. Last year, Ethan Becker with Dungeon and Dodgers was a finalist at the state level and won $18,000. Well, that contest is going to be open again, and Main Street Iowa has actually opened the applications for the communities. And so within the next week, our local application will be open. So if any of the businesses within the Main Street district, that is from 13th to 3rd Street and from 1st Avenue North to 2nd Avenue South, if you're within that space, contact me if you're interested in potentially winning some money. So great opportunity. They're really focusing on COVID recovery, how businesses are being fluid, or I'm going to use that overused word, pivoting to a digital platform and how they're pulling in more business through that. So if you're trying to get on the digital end of things and haven't quite figured it out yet, please contact myself or contact Cheryl too, and we can help you with that. The last thing is we have a new QR code for our interactive business map, thanks to Cheryl, and that is up on our website. So we have 208 operating businesses in the downtown. We didn't lose very many during the COVID shutdown. So if you're interested in scoping that out, seeing what we have downtown, and really clicking through that link, you can go to that business's Google site. So if the business doesn't have a Google business page yet, it's time to do that, because we are really trying to help all of the businesses in the downtown reach as many consumers as possible. So I think that pretty much covers Main Street today, Jed. I know I forgot something. I just don't know what.
Now, Chris, when you first hopped on, I remember you saying you really didn't have much to talk about. I'm never believing that again.
Well, you know, as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to Elizabeth and thinking about how childcare is impacting the businesses in the downtown and how many times some of our sole proprietors have had to close for the day because either they or an employee could not find childcare, it just really hit home. And there's always stuff going on downtown.
There sure
Jed,
is.
always.
There sure is. Well, very good. So I think that's going to mostly wrap up our show for today. Next week, I think, what are we calling it? We're saying it's a mystery box, Cheryl. Is that what we're calling it? A surprise box?
Yeah, you know, sometimes we have to rev things up a little bit. So we're just going to surprise everybody with what's going to happen next week. But you know that this will be every Thursday at 9 a.m. and you'll get more information on this next week when we post the live stream link on it. So yeah, we're just going to surprise you next week. It's going to be fun.
All right. Well, very good. As always, make sure to like and share from the Main Street Fort Dodge Facebook page, and make your comments on there even after the show. Share it with all your friends as well. We'll be back next Thursday, 9 a.m. Right here on the Main Street Fort Dodge Facebook page and the Alpha Media YouTube channel. As always, if you have something you'd like to share, or if you would like to be a guest. If you have something going on in your business that you think we need to let the community know, please contact one of us, and we'd be happy to talk about how we can get you on the program as well. So for all of our contributors, thank you so much. And thanks, Elizabeth, for joining us today and sharing all that great information with us. Thanks to Kimberly Tiefenthaler with the Americas SBDC for here in Iowa, unable to join us today because they're so swamped with other calls, but we'll be getting them back on very shortly to update us on all the things EIDL and PPP and starting a new business and all the great things that they do for both new and existing businesses. Chris Patrick, the Executive Director of Main Street Ford Dodge, and Cheryl O'Hearn with Spin Market and Digital. And of course, I'm Jed Burns with Alpha Media as well. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week.